What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Hockey YouTube channel, episode 22 of season 7. I'm your host, Jim Iacovone, joined as always by Jack Smith. If you're catching us live on YouTube, make sure to smash the subscribe button and hit the alert so you never miss a show. For all the podcast listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you're first in line when our newest episodes drop. Ladies and gents, if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, head over to YouTube, give us a subscribe. Help us on our quest to 1,000 followers. I believe we need 4 more to hit 800. So we're on the home stretch here. Could use your guys' help. Flyers, as you guys know, have been off for almost 2 weeks. They'll be back home again Saturday afternoon against the Edmonton Oilers. You've probably been watching the Four Nations tournament. If you couldn't tell by our YouTube thumbnail, that's what we'll be talking about for the majority of the show. It started out in Montreal. It's now finishing up in Boston. And the Flyers players, they'll return, I think most, if you've been paying attention to Matvei Michkov and Ivan Fedotov, are on vacation, doing some traveling during this break, if you will, Jack. And, you know, it's a funny coincidence because we're sponsored by a Philadelphia sports traveling company called Phans of Philly. Can you tell us a little bit about Phans of Philly, Jack?
Fans of Philly, so glad you asked. Flyers fans, we've got something special for you today. Looking to take your game day experience to the next level? Then look no further than Fans of Philly. With over 14 years of experience, they're the go-to team for putting together an unforgettable travel package for the diehard Philly sports fan. Why Fans of Philly, you ask? Let's break it down. These guys have spent years building the best relationships with bars, hotels, transportation, the teams themselves, you name it. Every trip they plan gets better and better, and trust me, they'll make sure your experience is top-notch. Whether it's scouting out the perfect hotel, finding the hottest nightlife, or securing the best seats in the arena, Fans of Philly has it all figured out. They know how to make your next trip an absolute blast. So head on over to fansofphilly.com, that's fansofphilly.com, and book your Flyers road trip today.
Man, Jack, what everybody says about you is true. You are the best at what you do. And
I am the best, particularly with defending John Tortorella. Just top notch.
That was great stuff. Good entertainment, great arguments. Kudos to Chris for coming on and joining you for that. Hopefully everyone watching tonight has already watched the great Torts debate featuring our own Jack Smith and Chris. I think he was a fanatical Flyers fan. He's not a Torts fan from the sounds of it, Jack.
It seems that in the Twitter world, there's typically not many of them out there. So that seems to be where it stems from. But it's good to know that we were able to find common ground, have a good thought out discussion. And at the end of the day, we're all fans of the same team.
Yeah, very true. So we're going to switch gears a little bit tonight with the Flyers not having played a game since February 8th, in which they beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think it was 3-2 or 3-1. It's been so long ago. But the Four Nations tournament has it's coming to a close tomorrow night with, I think, the final that everybody assumed would be between the United States and Canada. A lot of drama kind of surrounding that game already with injuries and substitutes and players that aren't allowed to substitute. And, you know, there might need to be some rule tweaking for the next few tournaments, or if they're going to continue to do this. But overall, Jack, what are your thoughts on this tournament as a whole?
It could not have gone better. I did not expect it to be this big of a deal. A part of me was like, let's get back to hockey. All I was thinking is the trade deadline. And then it actually happened. And first off, United States smokes Finland 6-1. That's a great start after like Canada snuck by Sweden. And then they play Canada, and that game could not have started better. And I love what PK Subban said about the NBA All-Star game and how boring and pointless and stupid most All-Star games are. The NHL's included. This, on the other hand, was top-notch, better than anything I think I've seen that's not season-related since, I guess, the Olympics. It felt the same, except for their 3 fights to start a game like this, a nation game. I've never heard of that before. Like, that's incredible. And you got to hand it to the Kachucks. Like the sparring, verbal sparring back and forth with Canada. I think I saw Matthew Tkachuk and Braden Hagel going back and forth. about, oh, we don't text our team. And Matthew Chuck's like, yeah, well, maybe you guys don't like each other. It's like, I love it. Absolutely love it. Never been more confident in Team USA than I am right now. And I think Canada's a little worried because they had our number for obvious reasons for years. And I think they're a little nervous now. Don't fall for any of the AI generated stuff. It is hysterical, but I have like my friend's dad sent me the McDavid one where he's like, I can't remember what he said, but it was ridiculous. I had to explain to him, like, he didn't say that. That's not real. It's all AI. It's AI, I swear, because it looks so damn real. But the whole thing in a vacuum, you got it. The political stuff as well. It is what it is. The booing of the national anthem, like, the last thing you want to do is piss off this team. And you saw what happened. And you know what? They look like the better team. So we'll see what happens. Got to close it out. Got to do the right thing. I don't think they were really all there against Sweden when you got it all wrapped up, although they were taking injuries at the same time. Shout out to Sam Emerson. Like, what a performance. Fantastic. Maybe he can pretend that the Flyers are his home nation and play like that all the time. I mean, I like Emerson. I'm not going to imply that he's not good, but he looked great when it mattered most in his career, I'd say.
For sure. So there's a couple points in there that I did want to talk about with the four nations. And I think first and foremost, so I want to talk about injuries eventually. And, what you think about injuries happening during this tournament and the effects it could have on the tournament moving forward. But first, I want to talk about the political aspect of this tournament, because frankly, there are a lot of people out there that are saying keep politics out of sport, keep politics out of hockey. And to an extent, I agree, right? But what's happening today, like, this is a perfect opportunity to use the political stuff in the trash talk, right? So as disrespectful as I truly believe it is to boo a country's national anthem, and let's just get this straight. The national anthems before games, before sport, are to honor those who are, putting themselves or have put themselves on the line. Whether you agree with it or not, they are making and choosing to make the ultimate sacrifice. And so the very least that we can do is honor them with the national anthem before, frankly, 21 guys or 20 guys, 40 overall, go out and play a game. As much as we look up to these guys, or kids look up to these guys, and we enjoy watching these players, a couple times a week, they're playing a game at the end of the day. So if you can't stand up and take your friggin' hat off for 30 seconds and just shut up, just to honor those people, that kind of does bother me a little bit. So that's my opinion on the booing during the national anthem. Having said that, it does add a little bit of fuel to all this, doesn't it? And you have Trump trash talking Trudeau, calling him Governor Trudeau, and Canada is going to be the 51st state and all this stuff. And we both have our Canadian friends up north, and I've been sending GIFs and whatever, subtle little jabs, because that's not going to happen. But it's a chance to talk some trash. And talking trash is a part of sport. It's a part of the game. It's what makes games fun. You want that bad blood, and you want to see and hear the chirps, and we're getting all that. It's not just a hockey game. It's kind of spilled out, right? You have political accounts. You have Fox News, CNN, I think, all retweeting the fights from Canada, USA. Like, this is a big deal. Like, it's not just hockey people watching this. I have friends that don't watch hockey that watch the hockey game Saturday night and are like, wow, this is fun. And so for anyone out there that says, we need to take fighting out of the game, yada, yada, you're dead wrong, because there are people that will watch this sport solely for the fighting,
I cannot stand people who say that crap. Like, there's no way you grew up watching this sport and are like, the fighting's got to go. It's always new people coming in trying to force that crap on us. Let me tell you, I agree with everything you said. Everything just makes it all heightened and more important, and just blows the other sports away. Like, I hate to say it, I don't want to crap on the NBA too much, But with they already having a decline in viewership, like over 50% this year, and the NHL on the rise, and then you look at this game tomorrow is going to be going up against the NBA All-Star game. You think anybody's watching the NBA All-Star game? Come on, get out of here. Like that, kudos to the NHL for that. And we do not mince words with the NHL. I shit on Gary Bettman every chance I get. He's the biggest Penguins fan there is. Like I definitely don't hold any punches, but you got to give credit where credit is due. This has been phenomenal. I love that it's transcended the sport, and it's just like you said, it's on CNN. That's incredible. When's the last time the NHL was on CNN? Probably when what was it? Bertuzzi smacked the guy in the head with a stick from behind. Something silly like that. This is amazing. I love the Kachucks. Not that I didn't already, but now I'm like, I feel the pride. The pride's there. One thing that irks the shit out of me, though, I saw a couple people on Twitter, Americans, cheering for Team Canada. Could you explain that to me, Jim?
No, I honestly,
because they're stacked.
I honestly can't.
What are you, a front runner? Like, what the hell is that? Let's go Canada fire. I'm like, you're American. Like, I don't understand. Maybe I'm just, I don't know. That bothers me. I don't get that one.
So I try to understand that perspective. And so I know for soccer, like I grew up, so half of my family is Italian. My mother's from Italy. Mom, if you're watching, hi. And so I grew up watching the Italian national team, right? And they were the team that I watched, that I rooted for. USA was always second or third, you know? And so when Italy played the United States in a World Cup, it's a little different because the United States has never had a shot at winning the whole thing, and they likely never will. So I would always root for the Italian team because, number one, I grew up watching them. I knew all the players, and they actually had a chance to win something. With this, unless you're, I don't even know if Canadian Americans exist. I'm sure they do. Then I could understand it somewhat. But if you're born, let's say, in Philadelphia to parents that were born in Philadelphia and their grandparents were born in Philadelphia, and you're rooting for the Canadian national team, I don't understand that. I just don't get that. Well, you don't have, and the first thing I think of is, are you ashamed to? And there are a lot of people out there that were rooting for Canada because of political reasons, which is weird in of itself. They're entitled to, it's a free country, but we could say that it's also weird, you know, because the United States has a very good team, as they showed Saturday night, you know.
It certainly is weird. But to me, it's like, because Canada's really good. Well, they've always been really good. Was I rooting for them in the 90s when Team America had 7 players? Like, yeah, they're my team. I got to stick with. That's what being a fan is. Like, it's just so baffling to me. And the only thing I could see, if it's political, and then it's kind of like, it's hockey. Like, come on. Like, this game has no bearing on what happens in the world. Like, it's just so stupid. And whatever. The point is,
the rooting for another country stuff is odd.
It's baffling. But needless to say, it already had a great game, and there's going to be another great game, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. And then we're going to get some. Then the Flyers come back 2 days later. So it's great. And the most important thing through all of this, because it sucks having your season shut down for 2 weeks, but the most important thing is that Peltier has his visa issue straightened out. Because this time off, they were able to sit down for 72 straight hours and figure out, for whatever God's forsaken reason it takes for so long. So we can look forward to seeing him on Saturday against Edmonton.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something to look forward to. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, hasn't really since the trade. I mean, like, I've kind of forgotten that the Flyers have made that trade. You know, I was kind of watching, not watching, but checking up on guys like Frost and Farabee, and Farabee still ain't doing much with the Flames. I think Frost has 2 goals. But they're like 1-4, 1-5 since the trade. So it kind of sucks for those guys to be traded to a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, and then they just can't win a game up there. But what are you going to do?
We'll see. Look, if I want to know what the Flames are doing, I'll ask our buddy Bill Meltzer. So I'm sure he's following them pretty closely.
Yeah.
There's actually an interesting question here in the chat. I was curious.
Yeah, pop
This is Anthony DeMeo here. While the tourney is good, I don't think you should ever shut down your own season for 2 weeks to play any. And this goes to your question about injuries, Jim, which we kind of talked over, including the Olympics. Why not have it like 96 during the end of August, September? I mean, to be honest, I would be okay with it if they kept it the way it was because I like it so much. But this is the right answer. The World Cup of Hockey, I think, was in September-ish. In 2016, I went to it. It was like the preseason, essentially, and that worked. Like, I agree. If you want to avoid some potential, I mean, you still might have injuries. But the other part of it is these players are in mid-season form. They're not like practicing training camps and then playing this tournament, which could still be pretty good. But right now, in the middle of the season, they are in mid-season form. So I think we're seeing a lot better hockey, goaltending, players on the ice. That is the balance for me. It's tough. When it comes to injuries, it's something it's a bullet you're going to have to bite because you're not going to get the style of play that made this game so great or this tournament so great. I mean, even Sweden and Finland were going at it. Like I heard Line, like basically, I think he was talking to Emily Kaplan and was like, yeah, how do you feel about that? They're like the big brothers. Like, looks like we're the big brother now. Like he didn't hold any punches back. That's great. We need more of that. Wait till Russia gets back into this. Wait till the other countries start getting it. It could be really something, really a lot of fun. I don't know how you balance the quality of play versus injuries. It just is what it is, but I can't complain.
Yeah, no, I think the only people complaining right now are maybe the Boston Bruins. Sounds like they're not happy with how things played out with Charlie McAvoy. And, I saw that he's got like a shoulder infection or something going on there from maybe a previous injury or whatever. But the hit that he likely injured it on from Yoel Armia was frankly a dirty hit. He flew into the post and his shoulder hit the post. And, the goals these days don't get knocked off as easily as they used to. So that's going to hurt. And, I do want to talk about this. So the injuries in this tournament, like an injury to Charlie McAvoy is a significant injury for the Bruins. And with the tournament being just, mere weeks ahead of the trade deadline, Jack, like all of a sudden, this is if McAvoy's going to miss some time, all of a sudden a team like the Bruins have to be in the market for a D. I think they're in top 3 in their division or at least battling for a wild card spot. I can check that out real quick. But that's a significant injury for a team like the Bruins. That's their number one defenseman, and so now, you're a team like the Flyers who Rasmus Ristolainen sat out the tournament. And, I haven't heard anything specific. I happen to think if he really wanted to play in this tournament, he could have played. There's also been evidence in the past that he hasn't been very keen on playing for his country for whatever reason. And there's been, a little bit of back and forth between both sides. Like Finland really wanted him to play. They wanted him to come to meetings. This is in the past. I'm not sure about leading up to Four Nations, but the timing of his injury was maybe a little bit convenient, where he didn't have to go play. He can rest up for a couple weeks ahead of the trade deadline. It's good for the Flyers as well if they are shopping him, if they're looking to move him. And so now, maybe a team like the Bruins comes and they at least check the price on a player like Ristolainen. You know what I mean, Jack?
I mean, absolutely. I'm going to sound like I'm talking out of both ends of my mouth here, and that's because I am. Like, I want the tournament to be what it is, and unfortunately, players are going to get hurt in those scenarios. And if you add more teams, more nations, you're going to have more games. It just is what it is, which is a good argument for having it in like August, September. I get it. I mean, some of these injuries, though, are a lot longer than a month or two. So, I mean, you're kind of rolling the dice, but it is what it is. And it's phenomenal content for the league. It really is. I just hope that they don't turn into a situation where, and I can't see them doing it. I think too many players have too much pride, but a situation where Risto is kind of like, I don't want to get hurt, so I'm not going to go. Like the Pro Bowl and the in football or something like that. Like they're just like, no, I'm going to skip it. I think they have too much pride for that. But
You'd be surprised with some of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just
surprised.
alluded to one, So and as a rebuilding team who's moving players, having one of our guys rest up and having a defenseman go down for another team, I mean, that really helps us out. But I'm not going to feel that way in like 5 years. So, I don't know what the perfect answer is to the question. All I know is what we saw was phenomenally good in general and for the league. This NHL has always had an issue marketing their stars. They've always struggled with that. This isn't like perfectly marketing their stars, but it's a hell of a start. I mean, you are leaving the NBA in the dust at this point. This is phenomenal for hockey. So I can't argue that either. So it's tough. Just going to enjoy the ride while I can, I guess.
Yeah. So I mentioned a guy like McAvoy. Yeah, maybe the Bruins are now a suitor for Risto, or at least an option. I think our buddy Dan Knightley put in the chat there, Leon Bichel, however you pronounce his last name, for the Dallas Stars, who are without Miro Heiskanen now for an extended period of time. Dallas is now a team on the list. Alex Pietrangelo is missing some time. He was supposed to be playing for Canada during this tournament. So the Golden Knights are now a team to keep an eye on. And I think, I mean, there's only a couple days left in between now and when the season starts back up on Saturday, but players are starting to come back from vacation. Like we were told, guys are going to get moved during this tournament. Nobody's gotten moved yet, but we're seeing players on vacation. So they should be back by now or coming back. Players in this tournament are heading back home. So maybe between Thursday and Saturday, we start to see things heat back up a little bit. A couple players on Team USA are banged up. I'm sure there are more players maybe that we hadn't heard of yet. But I think a lot of us thought that Scott Lawton potentially played his last game as a Flyer. He walked into the game with his dad against the Pittsburgh Penguins. He ended up scoring in the game. We heard that they were, really shopping him or taking calls on him. Toronto popped up as a team. Fraser Mitten was a player mentioned as a return. Does all that talk heat back up now with the tournament ending tomorrow night? And, so the eyes are going to be on the hockey world tomorrow night. Could we see a trade before the game starts? Because if a trade happens before the game, that team is going to be talked about all game long in each intermission. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to be honest with you, this isn't a credible source or anything like that, but a guy I know at work is a huge Capitals fan, and even he was like, who popped up on a potential suitor for the potential addition for us? I'm like, the Flyer, right? He goes, yeah, Scott Lawton. I was like, oh, really? I'm like, I can see him fitting into your bottom six. He goes, if we give him a first round pick for that, I'd be pretty upset. I'm like, I'd be pretty happy with that. Even though it's a division rival, but I want a first round pick. I was like, price aside, you would love it. He's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, you would love it, but like a team like that in the mix, like there must be a lot of, I'm not saying it's a legitimate source, but he must have heard it and read it somewhere because those are all he's a big hockey fan too. He's not like a fair weather guy. So he must have heard it somewhere. So I'm just saying there must be a lot of people asking about certain players. And if we go by this deadline and you tell me the only players the Flyers traded were Frost and Farabee, I'll be mind boggled. Really? I mean, because I never saw them getting moved mid-season, first off. Like, that's the main thing. Mm-hmm. But, like, I know they don't have to move Lawton or Risto. And I'm all for Briere sticking to his guns and his price because he's actually done that a few times now. And good. He's getting a better return. But the idea that neither of those guys get moved and Frost and Farabee did, like, if I put money on that, I'd be a millionaire. There's no way. And I just feel like so many teams need defense. It makes too much sense. You're getting a guy for this playoff run, then for 2 more seasons, or a guy like Lawton for the playoff run and next season at a very cheap $3 million. I find it hard to believe somebody wouldn't pull the trigger. And this Four Nations tournament has only helped that with injuries. So we'll see.
Yeah. See, we shall. So I don't know if you're watching the show, obviously we're talking Lawton, Risto, I had the pleasure of speaking with our buddies, Marco D'Amico and Jim Behringer, kind of before the Four Nations. They went up there for, Marco's obviously from Montreal, but Jim went up there to cover the tournament as well. So before they went off to cover the tournament, had the chance to speak to them. And Montreal, Jack, is in a similar situation to the Flyers, where they're sort of doing the hybrid thing. Well, Flyers aren't so much doing the hybrid thing anymore, but Montreal sort of has an established core of players that they want to grow with. And at the same time, they have guys like Savard and Jake Evans who they could move on from and potentially get something back at the deadline. And so the reason I mentioned a guy like Jake Evans, he's having a good year. He's capable third line center. And that's kind of, where I would assume a team would use a guy like Scott Lawton. So I guess what I'm saying is, Scott Lawton's not the only guy out there. So if the Flyers are setting, let's say, a deadline for themselves to move him, they're in competition with other teams, I guess is what I'm saying. And I would expect Montreal to be a little busy at the deadline as well. If you guys haven't listened to those quick episodes, I think they're like 10, 15 minutes long. Make sure you go check them out after our show. It's good intel on markets like Montreal, New Jersey, and the New York Islanders. Noah Dobson is potentially going to be moved, if you can believe that, Jack.
You think he gets, first off, no excuses, play like a champion. But also, you think that's a guy gets moved at the deadline?
There are
Brock Nelson
rumors.
For sure. Brock Nelson for sure. Definitely. And Noah Dobson? Damn.
Yeah, potentially.
Damn.
So I know he's an RFA, and talking to Jim, I think teams are looking at the contract that Brock Faber signed after his rookie year last year, and I think it was an 8x8, something like that. And the Islanders are supposedly in the market for a legit scoring wing, scoring center, and a guy like Noah Dobson, who's an RFA after this year, potentially looking for that big contract. You look at some of the moves the Islanders have made of late, just small trades or signings. They've signed, and I'm not saying any of these guys are as good as Noah Dobson, but they're preparing, in my opinion, for something. They traded for that kid from St. Louis, Perunovic. They signed Tony DeAngelo. I believe they made one more move. They picked up a guy off waivers, Adam Bachfist. That's 3 defensemen right there. And when Noah Dobson went out of the lineup is when they started, rattling off a bunch of wins. So you just never know with Sweet Lou, and I think trading Noah Dobson would be a mistake. But if he goes to a Western Conference team, go for it,
Depends on what they get back at the end of the day. If they really get like a scoring winger or center or something like that, then we'll see. But
yeah,
that seems like a lot of moving pieces to make that work, or a perfect scenario. And I'm not sure who's a scoring player on a bad team that could be moved or something. You know what I'm trying to ask here? Like,
yeah,
who's the player coming back?
So I'm thinking of a team. I can't remember if we mentioned specific teams for Dobson, but I'm thinking of a team like Vancouver, who maybe oversucceeded last year, and they're kind of a team in flux, in transition, where they still want to compete. So they're in the market for hockey trades, and they made that JT Miller trade, right? And so Elias Pettersson, I don't think is going anywhere, but they have a guy that can score on the wing in Brock Besser. He's familiar with Bo Horvat. I'm wondering if there's something there, scoring wing in Brock Besser. And, I know they already have Quinn Hughes, but it's something to keep an eye on, I think. I think that we were looking at Vancouver a while back, and, after Hughes and Hronek, I think they have Susie on a second pair, but after those 2 or 3 guys, it's pretty rough.
No, they need defense. I remember thinking Risto was a potential if they were like really going to make the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me for them. Yeah, I mean that's actually a good answer to the question. I do feel the Islanders should get a little bit more back than just Besser, but ultimately you'll see. Interesting, very interesting. If I'm Vancouver, I definitely like that because Besser should be like, isn't he like Konechny's age?
I believe so, and I think his contract might be up after this season as well. I can check that out real quick.
The only thing is the Islanders acquiring players from Vancouver hasn't really worked out as well as you'd like. So, but there is familiarity there. So there's something.
All right. So he's in year 3 of 3, and he is 27 years old, right winger. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I don't think that we've seen, maybe the most surprising moves of this trade deadline completed yet. I think it's going to be fun. I'll say that.
If Farabee and Frost is any indication, it should be great. It should be tons of fun.
Yeah. I mean, with that cap going up, I think, GMs are like, hey, we got a little bit more leeway here. I mean, we saw it with the Farabee trade. The Flames took on 2 or 3 years of $5 million for Joel Farabee,
And so, you got to assume they're going to keep Frost. They're going to give him some kind of maybe 2.75 or something. I mean, it adds up, but it's supposed to go up that much. That's why the Flyers having so much cap space and getting the other cap space from it just going up would be fantastic. But here's an interesting question from Vegas as well, because I did notice this. Just in general, how do you feel about Pettersson? He's been pretty rough this year and pretty much didn't do a whole lot of the nations for his team. And in their most important matchup, just was a complete goose egg non-factor. Is the Pettersson, is it a bad season, or is it something to seriously be concerned about? Are you scratching him off the potential acquisition list if he were to become available? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, I am. Because you know what I'm thinking about, Jack? Do you see the way that the United States opened up against Canada? Big physical, intimidating, and then played defensive style hockey. Imagine going up against a team like the Florida Panthers with Elias Pettersson, or a team, going up against a Brady Tkachuk against an Elias Pettersson. You lay a couple big hits on him, and you take him right on out of the game. I know he's one of the most skilled players in the league, so please don't get me wrong. Would I want that skill? Absolutely. But I'm not sure that he's one of those guys where when the going gets tough, I think he kind of bails out. He tucks his tail between his legs and says, hey, you know what? I'm still, whether I bust my ass or not, I'm making $11 million this year. You know what I'm saying?
No, I completely agree. He's that's kind of one of the things I really like about Mishkov. He's not that guy. Yeah. He's really talented and skilled, and he's got a whole trade with you. He'll take hits and get right back up. Yeah. I don't see that in Pettersson. Yeah, and I'm really starting to notice it this year, because this is the first year there was ever a chance he could be available. He's a center. It's exactly what we're looking for. So zeroing, and he may be having a bad year, but zeroing in on him, it's there's a lot of red flags where I'm yeah, I don't know. For the price, maybe we should look elsewhere.
Yeah, it's tough because you want skill, and yes, he's a legitimate top line guy, but it's do we want to win? Do we want to win championships, or do we want to win the regular season? You know what I'm saying?
And I agree with Mr. Bone here. He stylistically with Mishkov makes tons of sense, but at the same time, I get what you're saying too, and that's how the playoffs are. And that's what you just said. Really, it is. We've seen it, and Matthew Tkachuk, who you named, has a Stanley Cup ring, and we know what in his Stanley Cup loss, we know what he put himself through. The guy pretty much finished the playoffs in a body cast. It's going to take some blood, sweat, and tears. So that's where you got to figure things out, and they got to be careful here. And I'm okay with the cautious approach, because last year it was all about Zegras, and Danny Briere has checked in on him multiple times. But now look, it's we keep waiting this out. You might be able to get the guy pennies on the dollar, but does that still solve your need? I don't know. Pettersson might be around the same issue here. So we'll have to see. And I hope they make the right. They should trade for somebody, even if it doesn't work out, just because they should draft, trade, try to sign. They should do everything they can at center. I just hope they strike right with whoever they do eventually trade for. And ultimately, if they don't trade for somebody, I hope they figure it out and draft really, really well, or get really lucky in free agency. But at the same time, if they do trade for somebody who's a dumpster fire, that's going to look really bad too. So I get it.
Yeah, it is a tough one. You want them to make the right choice. And, we've talked about it a lot. I don't think they need to be in a rush or any hurry. And especially after this Farabee and Frost trade, they're kind of showing that, hey, we talked about it in our last episode. they're attacking this from all angles. They're going to have cap space. They got draft capital. They've shown that they're not afraid to make trades, So, one way or another, they're showing that, hey, we're serious about acquiring a top line guy. And I believe that they have the luxury to, zero in on potentially the perfect fit, whoever that guy may be. I guess one episode we can put together a list of maybe a top 10 list, even if they're potentially not available, just guys that we think would fit, and then we can zero in on, okay, well, these are the guys that we want. Who's like this that can be available kind of thing,
The only thing is, and this is why I like them freeing up cap space, is you never know. You never know. All of a sudden, somebody becomes available for whichever rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, we were like, Zegras is our only guy. Since then, Rossi's name has come up. Pedersen's name has come up. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. And there's
JT Miller was moved.
Right. JT. I mean, I don't know if he fits our whatever, but the point is,
center.
Good scoring center move.
Yep.
And so you just don't know. And maybe it is something closer down the road. So you like to be able to put yourself in the conversation should the situation arise. So I'll give them credit for that. It's been a slow approach. But that doesn't mean it's the wrong approach. I can't argue or be upset with anything Briere has done, considering the cards he was dealt. Hard for me to give him a hard time. I mean, really. Like, are you losing sleep over losing Farabee and Frost? Because I'm not.
Nah. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's been a little tough for me to sleep since they got moved.
Like you partying all night?
I'm only getting 8 hours now instead of 9. No. I mean, I think I kind of let it known how I felt the night that it happened, and there was that one faction of Flyers Twitter that I completely forgot existed because I have them all on mute and kind of took everything I said personally when, like I said, I forgot they existed. So obviously I wasn't talking to them, but I'm talking to more the demographic that listens to our show, which is 30 to 50-year-old men, so I was not talking to anybody 25 and under that has these deep emotional ties or connections to these players. So if I offended those people, I didn't know you listened to my show, didn't know you followed us. So not sorry, but anyways, not losing sleep over those guys. I like the move for the Flyers. We talked about it, and I don't think we really are giving Briere enough credit for that deal because if it was a rebuilding trade. He got rid of cap. Eventually he'll be rid of the cap. Because they got Kuzmenko back for this year, but he was able to get, a high second-round pick and a player in Peltier, who we haven't seen play yet, but everyone says that he's a Philly-type player, young 23-year-old kid with something to prove, moving on to his second organization. So, player, pick, prospect, and the player is a guy that they could potentially flip,
Is exactly what a rebuild team does. But watch, if nothing gets done at the trade deadline, will I be disappointed? Of course. Am I going to crap all over the Briere regime and what he's done? And oh my God, we're lost. No, but others will, hands down. Others will, and it's a shame. But it's that small pocket of Flyers Twitter that they like that low hanging fruit. Nothing was done. Fire everybody in the front office. Goal scored, goalie bad. Team loses, coach sucks. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was also that faction. I think something I said was like, it's weird to me that, people are so upset over guys like Frost and Farabee being traded when, we watched guys like
Richards and Carter.
Mike Richards and Jeff Carter get traded, within hours of each other. And, Carter was a former 40-goal scorer, almost 50-goal scorer. And Richards won everywhere he went, was a prototypical Flyer. And, I wonder if they watched those guys play, what the reactions would be or
I watched Lindros get traded, man. Like
Yeah,
that was like I watched Leclerc not
right,
only not get re-signed, but go play for the Penguins. Like that no
right,
Frost and Farabee, come on. Come
right,
on.
exactly. Yeah, like Simone Gagne got traded, and it's like,
Yeah,
wait,
Jesus.
we're this bent out of shape for these two guys, but I guess it's
And look,
when it's all
I
you know.
I know that Farabee really liked being the Flyer, and I really do appreciate that. But at the end of the day, it's about winning, and this team has not even been in contention to do anything in way too long.
Yeah,
You look at their history from when they first came into the league, this from like 20, I don't know, 14, 15 to now, it's been the worst era in Flyers hockey. And it hasn't been like horrifically bad. It's been bad. Don't get me wrong. It's been bad. And it's sometimes very bad. But it's not like they've been a doormat for years and years. But that's how good this franchise was. Like losing was like this was never an option. I remember seeing coaches get fired after having 3 straight winning seasons and going no less than the second round of the playoffs and still get fired. Like we are worlds away from those days.
yeah.
Hold on. Does not matter. And I hear this all the time, and it blows my mind. Torts is not going to be here after next year, if maybe even not after this year. Any free agent, well, first off, they're not signing any this offseason. And if they do, shockingly, they'll know that he's not the coach going forward. So to me, this is a non-factor. And I see it get brought up when why Torts is so horrible for the team. This team is going through a slow rebuild. They've said this multiple times. They just moved Frost and Farabee. They are not signing anybody anytime soon. Trades don't affect anything, and it's a non-factor. The guy will not be the head coach at the earliest after this year, at the latest after next year. So that's again, not to me. Jim, tell me if you think differently, but non-factor for me.
I guess if you throw enough money at a guy, right? Like,
well, then you care who the coach is?
Well, so let me think about this. So
they extended Torts rather. I have my own, hour-long rant on that alone because that's not part of the plan.
I think if I'm the free agent, I would need to know what the plan is, right?
I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And you don't think Briere and Keith Jones would hey, we're moving on from the teaching guy, getting the X's and O's guy when we're ready to win. Oh, by the way, signing you is a sign that we're ready to win.
Yeah.
Trade's a little different because you can get younger players. They grow with your team. But like signing a free agent, Torts, it's going to have nothing to do with Torts.
Yeah. And I think, Torts is singled out because he's our coach, but like
God forbid.
Let's say Dave Haxtell was the coach. Like there would be just as much, guys would choose to not sign with the Flyers just as much if Dave Haxtell was the coach as if they would if Torts was like everybody has their preference. And if you're a free agent and you can pick where you want to play, like a lot of guys like Torts, and they like money.
Yeah, so, most good players like Torts. Who would you want the next coach to be? Rosario, I'm glad you asked. Waiting for the Penguins to fire him. Mike Sullivan, who is best friends with John Tortorella. It is a natural move in. You can keep Shaw in this scenario and let him hire somebody to replace Rocky Thompson. To me, that would be the perfect scenario. Jim, you have other ideas?
I mean, I have ideas. Nothing that I'm like married to. I do like that David Carl coach. I would like to see, how he would do with an NHL opportunity. All he does is win pretty much wherever he goes. So I'm interested to see what kind of direction the Flyers head in. Like, are they going to go after a free agent? Are they going to make a big trade? Are they going to stick with Torts for, one more season and let that play out? There's a lot of kind of wait and sees what happens here. But, if I have to pick somebody right now today, I would say David Carl, somebody who can kind of grow with the players that they have and, maybe some success or if things start to go south quick, you can make a decision,
He's a guy that I'd be okay with, but I would be, I'm not saying like it's because of Hackstall, but maybe deep down it is a little bit, but I would probably be quick. Mm-hmm. I would probably be quick to criticize. And you're going to have to like tell me to take it easy if that's the case. But maybe you catch lightning in the bottle. Maybe you find the next like really good head coach before somebody else does, which would be phenomenal. So,
and so like Jim Montgomery came from, because I know we're kind of like PTSD'd with that with Dave Haxtell, but Jim Montgomery was a former college coach, and his first gig was with Dallas. We know he ended up having the alcohol issues.
Did he go straight from college to the Stars? Because I thought that Haxtell was the first one.
I believe Montgomery went during that year.
Or was he wasn't hired after Haxtell?
I feel like it was simultaneous. I'd have to double check as well.
Okay.
But I had success with Dallas, who I know had a pretty decent roster. But like it's not 50-50 either. It's just
Well, just because other guys didn't work out, I'm going to try not to hold that too against somebody.
Yeah. And look, I'm not a Haxtell fan. But Haxtell didn't do him any favors with the rosters either,
Not with the roster, but he did put his job on the line for him.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
I never liked Haxtell. I never understood the allure to that. I was told he was going to be good with the young kids, and the young kids all regressed. And then he had that like one season in Seattle. And I remember the hiring out there. I was like, what? And they had that one season where he was up for coach of the year. And then it went, if he don't get goaltending, he's useless. If he, and you saw that with the Flyers. The second the goaltending was bad, which it was, the whole team mantra changed. He didn't understand the freaking rules, the replay rules, the challenge rules. You could give him the pieces. You say, and you're right, you are right. Haxtell didn't do a whole lot with the roster, but there were better pieces there, and he purposely chose to like ice Yuri Laterra all the time over Oscar Lindblom, who was playing well at the time, over younger players. Andrew McDonald was used in every amazing game, like important game situation. You really think Andrew McDonald's in all situations defenseman? That is hysterical. And then that report came out that he used to get annoyed when the analytic guys would come down and be like, hey, Dave, we want to show you something. Oh, I can't be bothered. But yet he puts Andrew McDonald in every important situation. Like, to me, you're right. I'm flat out PSD. I'm talking. It's coming.
I'm going to say, it's all coming out right now.
I'll just, whatever. If they hire him, I'll just stay quiet. I'm sorry. I totally have PSD. It is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it was a tough stretch, and it was the start, if you will, of everything that we were going through now,
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
It's been rough, but we're 47 minutes into an episode of a week, the second week in a row with no Flyers hockey. So we're going to kind of run this one a little bit shorter this week. United States takes on Canada tomorrow night in the championship game of the Four Nations tournament. It should be a good one. If at the very least, it's great for the game. I think the game has grown in popularity and people who give a shit and are going to be tuning in to this game tomorrow night. And hopefully it carries over into the regular season because there's no sport, quite frankly. And I grew up playing soccer. There's no sport like hockey. It's, in my opinion, the most entertaining sport on the planet. It's the best sport to watch, the best sport to play. And hopefully some of this viewership trickles over into the regular season, and everybody sticks around for the playoffs. It's the hardest trophy to win in all of sports. It's the playoffs are the best playoffs to watch, in my opinion, in all of sport. The guys literally kick the shit out of each other, and it's basically who can last the longest, So really glad for the sport and everyone that watches and everyone that plays, and for the players. It's gonna be a good game tomorrow night.
Dude, they better fucking win. I'm telling you. Now I'm like emotionally invested, like you wouldn't believe. But I have full confidence at the same time. We have both Kachucks. Like, we have Austin Matthews. Let's go. Yeah. We don't need Quinn Hughes. We'll be fine. We'll be just fine. And
Canada loses twice. They become the 51st state.
Jesus.
I don't make the rules. That's the bet. That's what's going on. Governor Trudeau. So we're gonna wrap this one up, boys and girls. If you haven't left already, if you're from Canada, you might have. No, I'm just kidding. It's all in good fun. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to subscribe. Help us continue our quest for 1,000 YouTube subscribers. Like us and leave a comment. If you're watching or listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, set alerts so you're the first to know when we drop a new show. For all of our latest episodes, articles, and updates, head over to hwhockey.net. After the show, leave a comment in the YouTube comments. Let us know your final score for tomorrow night and pick who scores the game-winning goal for USA or Canada, and we'll do a giveaway for our next show. But you have to leave a comment on YouTube, not in the chat. So once we wrap up the show, head over to the YouTube comments and leave your final score and who scores the game-winning goal tomorrow night to enter yourself into the prize running. We'll let you know what the prize is next week.
Two things real quick. First off, I don't know if you guys, if you haven't checked that out already, please do. Jim has been dropping a lot of good information from some hockey beat writers and whatnot from other teams, but also I had the Great Torts debate. Check it out. It was a lot of fun. I'm also looking to do more things like that. So, and I want it to be, I don't want it to be a pissing contest. I don't want to be yelling at people. If anybody's interested and they have a strong opinion about something, reach out to me or Jim. Let's hash it out one-on-one with me, Jack Smith. What a plain general name. I hate it. But yeah, seriously, I want to do more of that stuff. It was a lot of fun. I got a lot of good reactions, and I like our fans. I like our chat. If you're a fan of the team, we may disagree, but you're still on the same team as me. So let's hash it out. Reach out to one of us. Let's get it done and have some fun with it. So by all means, Flyers Therapy is probably coming back. It is good to talk things out. So other than that, that's all I got, Jim.
Jack, I was going to say, I think you just found your show name, 1v1 with Jack Smith.
1v1. There's Flyers Therapy. I was thinking about calling it like Uncommon Sense or Rare Sense or something like, I don't know. Just talk to me, yell at me nicely, and we'll talk things out. It'd be fun. It'd be great.
Yeah.
Look, if the comments are any indication of how a conversation can go, I'm game.
Yeah, for sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're signing off. The Flyers are back on Saturday. USA, Canada tomorrow night. Let's go USA.
Hell yeah.